Hey everybody, welcome to today's video on the channel, and in today's video I have a commentary for y'all, and I want to talk about the most difficult schools to play in Wizard 101. Now, this is going to be primarily focused on PvP, a little bit of PvE, but not really, and I'm going to try to not be biased towards the meta to the best of my ability. If you're a newer viewer on the channel here, I do have every school max level, as you can see on the gameplay right now. Also, you should subscribe. This channel is awesome and you're awesome, so why the hell not? For this video, I have talked to other high-ranked players as well and took in some of their feedback. For the most part, most of our tier lists are pretty similar, but obviously mine might be a bit different from other people's experiences. And let me know what your guys' tier list is down there in the comments below for the difficulty of each school. So we're going to start off with the hardest school to play right now in Wizard101, and that is gonna have to be Storm. Now, you're probably guessed this. I mean, if you've been playing the game for more than a year on a Storm, you can probably tell this school is really difficult. In PvP, if you make one mistake, you will literally lose the game instantly, or you could lose a game off of not criticaling because the school is that punishing. Not to mention, if you don't play perfectly and you deck fail like at all, you will basically just lose tempo and lose the game. That being said though, if you are a good player on a Storm, you can pretty much almost beat anybody on this school. A lot of the community agrees that the skill ceiling for Storm is probably the highest game, and it takes the most skill to play in the game. But it's really hard to get any kind of results on this school because it just gets countered so easily, and like I said, if you don't critical, you deck fail, or you have like a piece of gear missing, chances are you're just gonna instantly lose the game before it even starts. Storm is one of those schools though that if you mess up during the match, you can typically reflect and be like, okay, this is where I went wrong for the most of the time. The only exceptions are when the meta is like against Storm and you can literally play better and still lose because the school is that bad right now at max level meta, but that obviously is not part of this tier list. The school is just extremely hard to play, and if you are a good player, you can pretty much gas anybody, which is pretty cool. And obviously in PvE, your health is really low, so it's pretty difficult to, you know, fizzle, and then, I mean, no, it's pretty easy to fizzle and then die in PvE, you know? Especially if you solo like me, man. I do a lot of soloing. I don't know if you guys know this, but I really like soloing. This school can be a nightmare to solo on, so I think it's definitely worthy of the hardest school to play in Wizard 101. Next up, I'm gonna have to put Fire right here. Now, obviously, if you look at the win rates, you're probably seeing, wow, Liam, your tier list is very similar to the win rates of PvP. Yeah, it's almost like there's a correlation in difficulty for the schools to play. Now, Fire is pretty much equally as difficult as Storm right now, in my opinion. In PvE, Fire is a little bit easier, not by much, but it is a pretty solid school for PvE in terms of like DPS. In PvP, Fire is a little bit of a hard one to play because as a new player, you might not know what the hell to do. Obviously, Fire is supposed to be the overtime school of Wizard 101. However, Trapstack Fire is a demon, right? Trapstack Fire right now is basically meta on a Fire. I know I'm trying not to include meta much in this video, but my point is here, there's a lot of stuff to do on this school. You don't know if you should be trapping a lot, you don't know if you should be overtiming a lot, or just trying to brute force your way to victory with like a Freet, Brimstone, Sun Serpent, S'mores, that kind of thing. There's always a ton of options for moves on Fire, just like there is Storm. There's not really a formulaic play to these schools, which is kind of what makes their skill ceiling so high compared to some of the other schools later on in the tier list here. If you play meta on a Fire and trap over and over, yeah, you'll probably rank up and win really often, but generally speaking, because of Fire's bad stats, just like Storm, you know, their lower health and the nature of it not being very formulaic, it can be a very difficult school to play. And I think it's a little bit easier than Storm, but not by much. So you could almost tie them, honestly, in this tier list, guys. Alright, next up on the tier list here, I think I'm gonna have to put Balance. Now, Balance right now in the meta is like the best school, top 3 best schools, but In this video, I think balance does require quite a bit of skill to play. Obviously, it's pretty simple. All you do is, stall time with a brace and a shield until you can shad and spam mana burn in the meantime. The formula is there for balance. It is really simple. However, the thing with balance is you have to be ready for every strategy, and you have to have a good understanding of the game, kind of like Storm. You have to have a lot of knowledge of, okay, can I take the burn here for the most part? And you have to think 2 steps ahead, typically on this balance, because typically what people will do right now is they'll try to PvE balance. So you're very vulnerable to damage on this school if you're not very careful. So I think because you need a lot of game understanding to obviously win a lot on this school, I think it does take a decent bit of skill. But the whole meta actually contradicts this point, because the whole meta, all you have to do is brace, burn, shad, and you win right now on this school. But I'm talking like in terms of skill ceiling, this school, you can probably beat anybody just like a Storm pretty much if you are a very good player. Stats are really good, cards are really good, and that's really all you need on a school like Balance. Next up, I think I am gonna have to put Death. Now, this might be a bit of a hot take. Death is one of the lower win rates, as you guys know. It goes Storm, Fire, and then Death for the majority of 5th Age. Storm, Fire, and Death kind of get swapped around, but that's what it's been for most of 5th Age, to my understanding. Now, this school, bare bones, is actually pretty easy to play. However, what I see a lot of people messing up on this school, guys, is they don't know how to manage their pips very well. They don't know if they should overtime, wand hit, vampire, poison, hidden bubble, ghoul, shield counter. There's just so much options in terms of like getting tempo on this school, and I think that's where the skill gap comes in on a Death. It's not much of a skill gap on this school. You really get carried by your damage per pip and your stats and your utility on this school for the most part, and drains aren't that good right now, unfortunately, but they are pretty decent. I think Death belongs somewhere in the middle. It's not a super high skill ceiling. All you really have to know is basically the timing of, what kind of shield counter to use, whether it's a wand, ghoul, vampire, hidden bubble, overtime, right? That's really, in my opinion, the only skill gap there really is to Death, is learning what moves are better to break a shield. And then aside from that, the game plan is pretty simple. You just want to get them open and send Grim Reader because it's the best shot in the game right now. But yeah, the school just really gets carried by its overwhelming amount of stats, and obviously Vampire is really good in the meta. Next up, I think I am gonna have to put Ice. Now, Ice, basically in the community, is known as the quote-unquote easy mode school. Now, you guys probably thought this would be number 1 or 2, but I think it's in at the number 4 or 3 spot right now. But this school, guys, actually, it's really good. It's pretty easy to play. Like, you just sit on resist and high damage and brace, and you just A-bomb over and over, and your opponent will die. You don't have to actually be too methodical about your A-bombs for the most part. I think the skill ceiling for Ice is very low. Like, again, all you really have to do is brace, A-bomb, stall time to A-bomb again, basically. And it's really easy to do that when you have 6 bubbles and no other school has that, especially 35 bubbles. And the fact that you literally are immune with a brace on while keeping all your damage, pierce, and block and everything is just absolutely crazy on this school. You also have really good P-serve, so your stats are just really through the roof. And again, it is very formulaic, very easy to play, but I think if a good player plays in Ice, they can pretty much know what their game plan is from the jump and kind of use that against them. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. If Ice stats weren't so broken, I think Ice would probably be one of the worst schools in the game right now, but it is a very easy school to play. Very forgiving school to play as well. Not a lot of skill to it. You just gotta manage your pips well, pretty much, and stall time for a shad, and you'll win pretty often on an Ice. That's really about it. Next up, I have Myth. Now, Myth is a pretty interesting one because Myth right now is like the most broken school in the game. You can't heal because you'll die. You'll get one-shotted in the meta. And you can't weakness or shield without getting a 40 trap on you. Myth can literally do anything and win right now in the current meta, so it's kind of hard for me to like non-biasedly rank this one in this video, guys. But I'm gonna try to keep in mind the delusion and betrayal nerf that is probably coming up like tomorrow or today, tonight, when this video is going up. I'm gonna try to take account for that in this video here, guys. I think Myth, honestly, if it goes back to not being PvE, I think Myth takes a lot of skill to play, you know? And I know we're coming out of a meta where Myth literally has 0 skill to play right now. I understand that, guys, but before then, I think Myth actually had a decent, you know, identity to it with like the minions and stuff like that. Mandar, it was a pretty cool and unique school. And I think when Myths actually are gonna have to play the game again, I think this school takes a lot of skill to play. You have a lot of options with traps. You can, you know, hit through weaknesses or trap like delusion. You have Medusa, which is the best stun in the game by far. You have Splash Squatch, Earthquake. You have so many options on this school, and like, you know, detonate, just so much stuff to do. And I think that's why Myth is probably so high on this tier list. But also, since it has so many answers to everything, it's pretty hard to play and pull everything you need in the moment, because you have to pack so many cards and then you have to cycle and pull the card. It can be kind of really, you know, overwhelming, right? But I think this school has a little bit of difficulty to it, but it's not that difficult at all at the end of the day. You just gotta know what you're doing, and you'll basically beat everybody on this school with your crazy broken stats right now. I don't think they're nerfing Myth stats in the next update, so you'll still have really broken stats. You still have Yaga, which is like, again, one of the best shads in the game right now. And you can literally do anything with Yaga, Stone, Mystic, Scion, Medusa, Splash, Earthquake. Do I need to go on? Next up, I have Life at the easiest school to play. Now, this is a kind of a, might be a hot take. I did want to put Life a little bit, you know, towards the harder end of the spectrum, but again, it's really hard for me not to be biased with Life and Myth right now and the current meta. Right now, in the current meta, Life can literally not even have to pack like any hits or have any damage to win in PvP. They can just sit there and heal over and over and basically Jade. Now, some people might be like, oh, well, that's Life's identity, Liam. And yeah, fair point. But if you don't have to play the game, why does that belong in PvP? So just the sheer fact that Life literally doesn't have to play the game to win right now, and the fact that if you are a semi-decent player, like a mid-tier player, and you're actually trying to kill your opponent on a Life, you just get so much value, and the school is so good. And it is by far, like, you can't even dispute this. It is the easiest school to play in terms of stats and cards. You get like 3,000 more health, 4,000 more health in Storm, with like 20 more resist, their damage, their pierce, their crit, and like 200 more block. And then your Shad, which is like Caterpillar, it gives like how much guaranteed value without outgoing? Isn't it like 1,300 or 1,400? Like DPP or something like that? Let's see here. Yeah, it's like 910. Yeah, it's like a 1,400 Shad for 5 pips. So that's why Life is just easily, undisputably, the best school and the easiest school in the game right now. You don't even have to play, and if you are a good player on this school, it's very difficult to lose. I'd argue it's easier to lose than win. Sorry, I'd argue it's easier to win than lose on a Life right now, which is just absolutely mental. If you guys enjoyed this kind of video, you know, ranking the difficulty and obviously the PvP meta, let me know down there in the comments below. Do you agree with my takes at all? Do you disagree? Looking forward to reading them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like and sub if you made it this far. I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, y'all.